Lila stood in her small but vibrant studio, surrounded by swatches of fabric and sketches that danced with color and creativity. At just 28, she was a passionate fashion designer, determined to carve her own path in the world of sustainable fashion. Her heart raced with excitement as she thought about her upcoming wedding to Ethan, a brilliant 30-year-old software engineer who had recently founded a startup focused on innovative, eco-friendly fashion technology. Together, they were a perfect match, two dreamers with a shared vision of a better world. However, not everyone was thrilled about their union. Lila's mother, Martha, a successful businesswoman in her own right, had always placed immense value on social status and reputation. When Lila announced her engagement to Ethan, Martha's reaction was swift and harsh. "You can't be serious, Lila. He's just a techie with no family name to speak of," she had exclaimed, her voice dripping with disdain. Lila felt her heart sink as she faced her mother's disapproval, but she stood firm, knowing that love was worth more than any title or legacy. As the days passed, Lila made the difficult decision to distance herself from her family. She chose to embrace her love for Ethan and the life they were building together, even if it meant sacrificing her relationship with her mother. Little did she know, this choice would set off a chain of events that would change everything. The day of the wedding arrived, and Lila felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The ceremony was intimate, held in a quaint garden surrounded by close friends who had supported her through thick and thin. As she walked down the aisle, her heart swelled with love for Ethan, who stood waiting for her with a smile that lit up his face. However, the joy of the day was overshadowed by the absence of Lila's family. Martha had made it clear that if Lila chose to marry Ethan, she would no longer be welcome in their home. "You are throwing away your future for a man who is beneath you," Martha had warned, her voice cold and unyielding. Lila had felt the sting of those words, but she had chosen love over fear, determined to forge her own path. After the wedding, Lila and Ethan settled into their new life together. They faced the struggles of starting a business, often working late into the night, fueled by passion and determination. Lila poured her heart into her fashion line, creating pieces that were not only beautiful but also sustainable. Ethan, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to develop his startup, which aimed to revolutionize the fashion industry with technology that minimized waste and promoted eco-friendly practices. Despite the challenges, their love flourished. They celebrated small victories together, from Lila's first successful collection launch to Ethan securing a small round of funding for his startup. Each milestone brought them closer, reinforcing their belief that they could achieve anything, as long as they had each other. But as their success began to grow, so did the whispers from the past. Lila couldn't shake the feeling that her family was watching from the sidelines, waiting for an opportunity to re-enter her life. She often wondered if Martha would ever come around, but she pushed those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the life she was building with Ethan. As the months rolled by, Lila and Ethan's hard work began to pay off. Lila's fashion line gained traction, attracting attention from local boutiques and eco-conscious consumers. She felt a sense of pride as she watched her designs come to life, each piece reflecting her values and creativity. Meanwhile, Ethan's startup was making waves in the tech world, securing partnerships with influential figures in the sustainable fashion industry. One evening, as they sat together in their cozy living room, Ethan turned to Lila with a gleam in his eye. "I just got off the phone with a major investor," he said, excitement bubbling in his voice. "They want to meet with us next week to discuss funding for our next project." Lila's heart raced at the thought of what this could mean for their future. "This is amazing, Ethan. We could really take things to the next level," she replied, her enthusiasm infectious. However, with success came new challenges. Lila found herself juggling the demands of her growing business while supporting Ethan through the ups and downs of startup life. There were late nights filled with brainstorming sessions, endless cups of coffee, and moments of doubt. Yet through it all, they leaned on each other, their bond growing stronger with each hurdle they overcame. Despite their progress, Lila couldn't shake the feeling of unease. She often caught herself glancing at her phone, half expecting a message from her mother. But the silence was deafening. It was as if Martha had completely erased Lila from her life. Lila tried to convince herself that she was better off without that toxic relationship, but a part of her still longed for her mother's approval. Then, one fateful day, everything changed. Lila received an unexpected email that sent her heart racing. It was an invitation to a prestigious fashion event where she would have the opportunity to showcase her latest collection. This was a chance to gain recognition in the industry, and Lila knew it could open doors for her brand. But as she read the details, a familiar anxiety crept in. What would her mother think if she found out? Ethan noticed her hesitation. "Lila, this is a huge opportunity. You have to go for it," he encouraged, his voice steady and reassuring. "You've worked so hard for this." Lila took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her dreams pressing down on her. "You're right. I can't let fear hold me back," she replied, determination flooding her veins. As the event approached, Lila poured her heart into preparing for her showcase. She designed a stunning collection that embodied her vision of sustainable fashion, each piece telling a story of love and resilience. With Ethan by her side, she felt invincible, ready to take on the world. The day of the fashion event arrived, and Lila was a bundle of nerves and excitement. The venue was buzzing with energy, filled with industry professionals, influencers, and potential investors. As she set up her display, she could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This was her chance to prove herself, not just to the world, but to her family as well. When it was finally time for her showcase, Lila took a deep breath and stepped onto the runway. The lights shone brightly, illuminating her collection as the models glided down the catwalk, showcasing her designs. Each piece was a testament to her hard work and dedication, and the audience responded with enthusiastic applause. Lila's heart soared as she realized that her dreams were finally coming to fruition. As the event concluded, Lila was approached by several influential figures in the fashion industry, all eager to discuss potential collaborations and partnerships. Among them was a well-known fashion magazine editor who expressed interest in featuring Lila's work in an upcoming issue. "Your designs are groundbreaking," the editor said, her eyes sparkling with admiration. "I believe you have the potential to change the industry." Meanwhile, Ethan was busy networking, sharing his vision for sustainable fashion technology with investors who were captivated by his ideas. As the night progressed, Lila and Ethan found each other amidst the crowd, their faces beaming with pride. "We did it!" Lila exclaimed, wrapping her arms around Ethan. "This is just the beginning." However, the celebration was short-lived. The next morning, Lila received a phone call that would change everything. It was Ethan, his voice filled with excitement. "Lila, you won't believe this. We just secured a major investment from a top venture capital firm," he announced. "They want to help us scale our businesses and take them to the next level." Lila's heart raced as she processed the news. This was a game changer for both of them. But as the reality of their success sank in, she couldn't shake the feeling that her family would soon come knocking. And she was right. Just a few days later, an unexpected envelope arrived in the mail, bearing the familiar gold-embossed stationery of her mother. With trembling hands, Lila opened the envelope to find an invitation to a family gathering. The words, "We miss you," were scrawled in Martha's elegant handwriting. Lila's heart raced as she read the invitation, a mix of emotions flooding her mind. After 5 years of silence, her mother was reaching out. But why now? Was it because of her success? Ethan noticed her distress and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to go if you don't want to," he said softly. "But this could be an opportunity to confront the past and show them who you've become." Lila took a deep breath, weighing her options. She had fought hard for her independence and happiness, but the thought of facing her family again was daunting. After a long moment of contemplation, Leela made her decision. "I think it's time to show them exactly who I am now," she said, her voice steady. "I'm not the same girl they disowned. I've built a life I'm proud of, and I won't let their opinions define me." The day of the family gathering arrived, and Lila felt a whirlwind of emotions as she and Ethan approached her childhood home. The familiar white columns and manicured lawns loomed before her, a stark reminder of the life she had left behind. As they walked up the circular driveway, Lila's heart raced with anticipation and anxiety. Would her family accept her? Would they acknowledge Ethan? As they entered the house, Leela was greeted by a flurry of familiar faces, distant relatives, family friends, and the usual crowd that had always surrounded her mother. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and chatter, but Leela felt a palpable tension in the air. She spotted Martha across the room, impeccably dressed as always, her eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on Leela. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. "Lila!" Martha exclaimed, her voice a mix of surprise and forced cheerfulness as she approached. "You look different." Lila could sense the underlying judgment in her mother's tone, but she held her head high. "Thank you, Mom. It's good to see you," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Ethan stepped forward, extending his hand. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Mrs. Thompson," he said warmly. Martha's expression shifted, a flicker of surprise crossing her face as she shook his hand. "Ethan, right? I've heard a lot about you," she said, though her tone suggested she was still skeptical. As the evening progressed, Lila found herself navigating a minefield of conversations. Relatives asked about her life, her career, and her marriage. She spoke proudly of her fashion line and Ethan's startup, sharing stories of their journey together. But with each mention of their success, she could feel the weight of her mother's disapproval lingering in the background. Later in the evening, Lila overheard a conversation between Martha and her sister Sophie. "I just don't understand why she chose him," Martha said, her voice low but sharp. "She could have had anyone, but she threw it all away for a man with no pedigree." Lila's heart sank at her mother's words, but she steeled herself, determined to confront the issue head-on. Gathering her courage, Lila approached her mother. "Mom, can we talk?" she asked, her voice firm yet calm. Martha looked taken aback but nodded, leading Lila to a quieter corner of the room. "What is it, Leela?" Martha asked, crossing her arms defensively. "I thought we were past this." "I need you to understand something," Lila began, her heart racing. "Ethan is not just a man with no pedigree. He's brilliant, hard-working, and he supports me in ways I never thought possible. I chose him because I love him, and that should be enough." Martha's expression hardened. "But what about your future, your reputation? You're throwing it all away for love," she retorted, her voice rising slightly. Lila took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her mother's expectations pressing down on her. "Mom, my future is not defined by your standards. I've built a life I'm proud of, and I won't let you or anyone else dictate my happiness. Love is what matters most to me, and I hope one day you can see that." For a moment, silence hung between them, the tension palpable. Lila could see the conflict in her mother's eyes, a mixture of fear and regret, but before Martha could respond, Sophie appeared, breaking the tension. "Hey, Lila, can you help me with something in the kitchen?" she asked, her voice cheerful. Lila nodded, grateful for the distraction. As they walked away, she felt a sense of relief wash over her. She had stood up for herself, and no matter what happened next, she knew she had made the right choice. As the evening wore on, Lila found herself in the kitchen with Sophie, who was busy arranging a platter of hors d'oeuvres. "You were really brave out there," Sophie said, glancing at Lila with admiration. "I can't believe you confronted Mom like that. I've always wanted to say something, but I never had the courage." Lila smiled, feeling a warmth in her sister's words. Thanks, Sophie. It's not easy, but I realized I can't keep hiding who I am just to please her. I deserve to be happy, and so do you. Sophie nodded, her expression thoughtful. I just wish Mom could see how amazing you and Ethan are together. You both have built something incredible. Just then, Ethan walked into the kitchen, a plate of food in hand. I thought I'd find you two here, he said, grinning. I was just talking to some of the guests about your collection, Lila. They're really impressed. Lila felt a surge of pride at Ethan's words. Really? That's great to hear, she replied, her heart swelling with gratitude for his unwavering support. As the night continued, Lila noticed Martha watching her from across the room, a contemplative look on her face. Lila's heart raced again, but this time she felt a sense of hope. Maybe, just maybe, her mother was beginning to understand. Later, as the gathering began to wind down, Martha approached Lila once more. Can we talk? She asked, her tone softer this time. Lila nodded, her heart pounding as they stepped outside onto the porch, away from the noise of the party. Lila, I've been thinking about what you said earlier, Martha began, her voice trembling slightly. I realize I've been too focused on appearances and status. I was scared for you, scared that you'd make the same mistakes I did. But I see how happy you are with Ethan, and I can't deny that. Lila felt a rush of emotions at her mother's words. Mom, I appreciate you saying that. I know you want what's best for me. But I need you to understand that my happiness comes from being true to myself and the people I love. Martha nodded, tears welling in her eyes. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I was wrong to judge Ethan without knowing him. I want to try to make things right, if you'll let me. Lila's heart softened at her mother's vulnerability. I'd like that, Mom. It's going to take time, but I believe we can rebuild our relationship. As they stood together on the porch, Lila felt a sense of relief wash over her. The weight of the past was beginning to lift, and for the first time in years, she felt a glimmer of hope for the future. The next few weeks were filled with new beginnings. Martha made an effort to get to know Ethan, attending events and even visiting their studio. Lila watched as her mother slowly began to embrace the changes in her life, and it filled her with joy. One evening, as Lila and Ethan sat together in their studio, they received an unexpected phone call. It was a major fashion magazine, wanting to feature Lila's collection in an upcoming issue. "This is incredible," Ethan exclaimed, his eyes shining with excitement. "You're going to be a star." Lila couldn't believe it. All her hard work was finally paying off, and she felt grateful to have Ethan by her side. "We did this together," she said, squeezing his hand. "I couldn't have done it without you." As they celebrated this new milestone, Lila realized that her journey was not just about success in her career, but also about the love and support of those around her. She had fought for her dreams, and in doing so, she had also fought for her family. In the months that followed, Lila and Ethan continued to thrive both personally and professionally. They launched a joint initiative to promote sustainable fashion, combining their talents to create a brand that resonated with their values. Lila's designs gained recognition, and Ethan's technology became a game-changer in the industry. As they stood together at a launch event, surrounded by friends, family, and supporters, Lila felt a sense of fulfillment wash over her. She had not only built a successful career, but had also mended the bonds with her family. Looking out at the crowd, Lila spotted Martha and Sophie, both beaming with pride. In that moment, she knew that love, resilience, and the courage to be true to oneself could overcome even the deepest divides. As the months passed, Lila and Ethan's joint initiative flourished, gaining traction in the fashion industry and beyond. Their commitment to sustainability resonated with consumers, and they were invited to speak at various conferences and events, sharing their vision for a more ethical future in fashion. Lila felt a sense of purpose that she had never experienced before, knowing that their work was making a difference. One evening, after a successful event, Leela and Ethan returned home, exhausted but exhilarated. As they settled onto their couch, Leela reflected on how far they had come. "Can you believe this is our life now?" she asked, a smile spreading across her face. "We're actually changing the industry." Ethan chuckled, wrapping his arm around her. "I always knew we could do it together. You have an incredible talent, Lila, and I'm just glad I get to be a part of it." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door. Lila opened it to find Martha standing there, a bouquet of flowers in hand. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, a hint of nervousness in her voice. "I wanted to bring you these as a small gesture of support for your latest collection launch." Lila's heart swelled at the sight of her mother, who had come to embrace her choices. "Thank you, Mom. That means so much to me," she replied, inviting Martha inside. As they settled in the living room, Lila noticed how much more relaxed Martha seemed. They chatted about the upcoming launch, and Lila shared her excitement about the new designs. "I can't wait for you to see them on the runway," she said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Martha smiled, her pride evident. "I'm so proud of you, Lila. I've been following your journey, and I can see how hard you've worked. I want to support you in any way I can." Lila felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "It means the world to me that you're here, Mom. I know it hasn't been easy for either of us, but I truly believe we're moving in the right direction." As the evening progressed, they shared stories and laughter, the tension of the past slowly fading away. Lila felt a sense of healing in their relationship, a bond that was being rebuilt with each conversation. A few weeks later, the day of the collection launch arrived. The venue was beautifully decorated, filled with vibrant colors and the buzz of excitement. Lila stood backstage, her heart racing as she prepared for the show. Ethan was by her side, offering words of encouragement. "You've got this, Lila. Just remember to enjoy the moment." As the lights dimmed and the music began, Lila took a deep breath and stepped onto the runway. The audience erupted in applause as the models showcased her designs, each piece a reflection of her journey and values. Lila felt a rush of emotions as she walked down the runway, soaking in the moment. When the show concluded, Lila was met with a standing ovation. Tears of joy filled her eyes as she took a bow, her heart swelling with pride. She had not only achieved her dreams, but had also created a life that was true to herself. After the show, Lila was surrounded by friends, family, and industry professionals, all eager to congratulate her. Among them was Martha, who embraced Lila tightly. "You were incredible, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. Lila smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Mom. I couldn't have done it without your support." As the night continued, Lila and Ethan shared their vision for the future, discussing plans for expanding their brand and continuing their mission of sustainability. They were excited about the possibilities ahead, knowing that they were building something meaningful together. In the months that followed, Lila and Ethan's brand gained national recognition, and they were invited to collaborate with other designers and organizations committed to sustainable practices. Their journey was just beginning, and they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, hand in hand. Lila had learned that true success was not just about achieving her dreams, but also about the relationships she nurtured along the way. With her family by her side and Ethan as her partner, she felt ready to embrace the future, knowing that love and authenticity would guide her every step.